Hey, we want to welcome you to another Afterthoughts with Kaylee and Lee. Today we're going to talk about joy, because it's the Advent of joy, and I wear my joy shirt. This is my favorite joy shirt, or my favorite Advent shirt, because of the color. And I don't know, it's there. Even the style of it is even more appealing. But you'll notice that we've switched chairs because it gives me great joy to disrupt things.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned that before. And so out of great joy, I got to the room first, and I'm like, I'm switching chairs because I knew that would throw Kaylee for a loop. And that gives me joy.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad for you.
What, hey, here's a question, because you always ask me questions. So here's an off the cuff. You did not prepare for this question.
Oh, no.
What gives you the greatest joy, but it can't be a churchy answer? So this is what I mean, because we're doing a church video. So,
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Jesus clearly gives you great joy,
100%.
right? But like, what gives you great joy, but something that's like very regular?
Okay, two things. Driving, like prairie country roads by myself. Deep, deep joy. And orcas.
And orcas.
Oh, like next level.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess if you want to give Kaylee's great joy, there you go.
Orca earrings. Like next level. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yep. Since
great.
I was a kid.
All right. Well, that was my intro. That's what I got prepared.
I like it. I was going to ask you, is your favorite color red? Is that why you like it?
I think red is my favorite color, but as soon as I say red's my favorite color, I don't want it to be red now, because that's that joy of disruption once again.
No box.
Of like, nope, I actually like green. Nope, I actually changed my mind. It's black. Nope, never mind. I don't like any colors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pot stirrer. Great.
Yeah.
Love it.
There we go.
All right.
Little silliness to bring joy
Lots
to
of
your
joy.
afterthoughts with Kaylee and Lee.
Great.
Good.
I like it. Why don't you recap for us the sermon?
Sure.
Past Sunday?
Well, similar to what we talked about with peace, joy in the same way, and I had kind of that same thought of there is this momentary joy that you can have, but there's eternal joy, or at least joy that is outside of circumstance would probably be the best way as I think it through. So like we have like, again, momentary joy of what were some of the things like money and gifts and hobbies and family, work, vacations, like all those things can bring joy. Wearing this t-shirt, getting orca earrings, right? Like that's temporary joy. It's not long lasting. It's not fulfilling. It doesn't mean that it's not important or that it's not a thing.
Right.
Of course it is, but it seems as though in our culture, this is what we pursue to fill our joy need, is these momentary things. Whereas in fact, the whole reason that we celebrate joy in Advent is recognizing that Christ is our joy. Like joy is found in a relationship, in a restored relationship with Christ. And out of that restored relationship, it's a fruit of the Spirit. Like as you have a Spirit-filled life, it actually flows out of you, so that you can have joy in all kinds of circumstances. Like even when you go through trouble and difficulty and pain and like what's next, you can still find joy in the Lord, which is very different than momentary joy.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Love it. As I was thinking about joy, I came across a quote actually by one of my favorite preachers, Daryl Johnson. And he said this. He said, we're so wired for joy that we're vulnerable to try to find it in places that cannot deliver.
Oh, yeah.
And it made me think of that same temporary, momentary joy, but the fact that we're like, just how beautiful a gift it is that we're wired for it. We're wired for it to be a fruit of the Spirit. But that makes us vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right?
I've never thought about it in that way. Like you have this vulnerability because of it. Yeah. You're right.
So the question then that I would pose or ask is, in your own life, where have you found two things? So where have you found God correcting or redeeming even a place that you went looking for joy but didn't find it? And then the second part of that question would be, where are you still tempted to find joy that isn't in Jesus himself? yeah, I just found that really, like, both encouraging and challenging to go,
yeah.
right.
It's really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that we're wired for also makes us vulnerable.
Yeah.
You also talked about the fruit of the Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and that joy is one of them. I read, I don't know where it was, but essentially that joy is the byproduct of belonging to Him who is joy.
Right.
And again, Daryl, I don't know, I just love Daryl, but I was listening to something else he was sharing, and he was talking about catechisms.
Oh, okay.
And there's one of the catechisms says, what is the chief end of man? What is the chief end of humanity? And the answer is, the chief end of man, of humanity, is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever.
Mm-hmm.
So when we find our joy in Him, we're actually glorifying Him.
Right.
And so then it got me wondering, what characteristics of God make you feel like you enjoy Him?
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we think a lot in our own lives, like, oh, I know what I can name what I enjoy about you. I can name what I enjoy about Aiden and our staff and
Right.
Mark and our kids, and like, but I love that kind of thought of like, man, what do I enjoy about God? And then, that fosters all sorts of things. That fosters gratitude, that fosters alignment, that fosters even more filling of His Spirit, because yeah.
Yeah, I think, when even as you've unpacked that, this idea of that did Jesus as a characteristic of a character of God, right? Like, as the Son of God, He's fully God. So like how He lived, He would express God in ways that maybe in my fallenness I don't always.
Right.
So I think about, how there have been times where He'd have been really frustrated with the disciples and they weren't getting it. And how many times was He proud of them for understanding of, think of, Peter saying like, you're the Son of God, you're the Christ. And like, that would have been a proud moment for Jesus to go like you didn't see that. It was like, that was revealed to you by the Father, but like you said it.
Yeah.
And like and so like there would be like I'm proud of you thing. And so then when I think about where I get the most joy, where it like starts to flow out of me, like that's different than the joy I get from being a little bit difficult in humor. A very different joy starts to flow out when I become proud of when I see people connect with God or connect with Christ in a way that is just like, that wasn't me. That was God showing up in your life, and you just expressed that.
Yeah.
And I got to be a witness to the growth and to the light that just all of a sudden got like bright.
Yeah.
And then the joy that like I feel in that moment, I go, oh, like that's the God joy. Like that's the joy that comes from the Spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the deep one.
Yeah.
I think that's all for me. I think it's really cool to reflect on it. And maybe in our groups, was there, I know you focused on John, you referenced John 15, and then you went to Romans. Is there a specific passage that you think would be cool for the groups to go, what stands out to you most about this chunk?
Yeah, I think, when we look at Romans 15, it says we can't will ourselves to experience joy. And so I think that goes back to what Daryl was saying of like, because we're vulnerable. And again, I love that. Like, we're vulnerable to this because we're wired for joy.
Yeah.
When we go seeking joy in places that can't actually fulfill it, it does wound us to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's a little bit like people who struggle with addiction, of they're always going back for the hit, but the hit doesn't hit as big as it used to. So then they do it more and they do it more, and then it's like that's where that addiction drives them to despair, even though what they were addicted to at first was good, or felt good at the very least.
It felt like a fulfillment of something. Yeah.
It was fulfilling a need.
Yeah.
Right? It no longer did, and it actually led them into despair. So I wonder if Romans, and if Paul in Romans is basically pointing us to that, if you want the joy that can last, or the joy that can actually fulfill the longing or the void that we were created to experience, he says it comes from God alone. right? And so even Jesus himself says that my joy may be complete in you, that your joy may be full.
Yeah.
Like joy is found in Christ and in Christ alone.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't diminish the good things that God has created for us, so that we create, as we are creative people made in God's image to be creative.
Yeah.
There are things that, again, we experience joy, but if that's all we pursue, again, I think it leads into despair eventually, of like, you're always searching for the next big high, you're searching for the next big moment, you're searching for the fulfillment that never comes. I mean, why we talk about like the pursuit of wealth is an empty void, like, that wealthy people aren't happy. Well, of course they're happy, but if that's all they're getting their happiness from, eventually it does become despair,
Right.
even though they are extremely wealthy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah. All right. Food for thought.
that was a big one.
It was.
That's good.
All right. Enjoy.